So good afternoon. My name is Marios Constantinou. We're going to be here together for about an hour. And we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. I'm starting to feel like a YouTuber. I don't know if that's great or not, because I had the same talk in Greek last week, and next week I'm going to have it in Finnish, and then the following in Swahili. No, I'm joking. This is the second and last one. Today we're going to have it in English. And we're going to start with a video. I want you to watch this video carefully, and then we're going to start our presentation.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So we're getting back to our presentation. I wanted you to watch that video because the center fold of emotional intelligence is exactly what was the subject matter of the video: empathy. And empathy is a big word. Empathy, as you saw in the video, is not sympathy. Empathy is actually trying to get as close to what everybody else is feeling or somebody else is feeling, like understanding their pain, understanding their emotions, understanding where they're coming from, or as we say sometimes, getting in their own shoes. That's okay. So I'm going to start my presentation. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence. What you can do actually is write down some questions that you may have on the chat, and towards the end I'm going to try and read them and answer to you as many as I can. We have about an hour, so we started at 3. We're going to finish a little bit before 4. So have that in mind. If you have like a piece of paper in front of you or your cell phone or something else, you can jot down some questions that you may have for me. By the way, as I told you last week, I did the same presentation in Greek, and I was wondering if I should do the same presentation, if I just translate it last week's presentation, but then I thought that maybe some people can watch this. The people that watch the Greek one, they may want to watch the English one as well. So instead of having exactly the same presentation, I went around and found some great materials from some amazing people who are researching in the area of emotional intelligence. The only thing that is pretty similar to my last week's presentation is this first slide, which is asking you, what is IQ? What is the intelligence quotient? What is intelligence, as we're saying? And IQ, it's a word that we are overusing it outside in the society. It's a word that is kind of sort of lost its meaning. And why has it lost its meaning? Because for psychologists, IQ is just a way for us to assess cognitive processes where, if somebody doesn't have the highest IQ, or if they have an average IQ, or if they have a below average IQ, most of the times it's not going to play a huge role in their emotional life, in the way that they're living their everyday life. Not that it doesn't have an effect, okay? But IQ, as we know it, it's many things. It's a lot of variables put together. It's your ability to organize your thoughts, for example, your actions, your world around, your environment. It's your ability to adapt to changes, any changes that might happen in your life, to solve new problems, to solve those problems quickly, to understand situations and problems, okay? It could be as well your visual spatial skills and how good you are in those. It could be so many different things that actually change from culture to culture. If you asked, for example, somebody who's living in New York City what is intelligence, they're probably going to give you an answer involving a lot of the things that I just discussed. But if you ask a nomad living, let's say, in a desert somewhere, let's say in Africa or in Asia, and they're nomads and they're going around with their animals, what is intelligence? They may tell you a slightly different thing. They may tell you it's the ability to find water, it's the ability to actually feed your animals, which again, it's not totally unrelated to what a Westerner from New York City may tell you, but the hierarchy is going to be different. Whereas solving problems might be the number one thing in a Western hierarchy when they're defining IQ. In some other cultures, you may have something else as number one. So this is IQ. This is what we call book smarts. It's what you get through your education mostly, okay? And of course, it's a lot of what you bring with you when you're born. But in the last couple of decades, emotional intelligence has been gaining a lot of momentum, especially for people who deal with other people every day. Let's say businessmen, students, parents, anybody that has to deal with other people, they should be interested in emotional intelligence. It started as a very big in the business area, and then we started realizing that emotional intelligence is really, really important for everybody that has to do with other people. So from this website that I'm showing you up here in red at the very top, okay, I found the best definition, or the most simple to comprehend definition for emotional intelligence, which it says here is a capacity for understanding our own feelings and the feelings of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing our emotions effectively in our intelligence, okay? So we said that IQ, it's book smarts. Emotional intelligence will be more like your people smarts, okay? It's a person with very high emotional intelligence. They're going to be very empathetic, okay? Empathic. They're going to be able to comprehend others, but at the same time, they're going to be able to understand themselves a lot. They're going to be very high in self-awareness, comprehending their own feelings, how they're feeling, and where they're at the moment. And emotional intelligence has some 4 components that everybody is discussing, and we're going to see those in more detail later on. It's self-awareness, understanding yourself, self-management, managing yourself, managing your emotions, managing your actions, This is just repeating social awareness here. Social skills, your everyday social skills, and what should have been here, guys, where it's repeating social awareness, it should be social assessment and social self-assessment, where you assess yourself in your everyday life and what is needed. And let's get into those. But before we get there, there are a lot of tests out there, formal tests, published tests that can actually assess your emotional intelligence. But even if you assess your emotional intelligence and you get a number and it tells you you're high or low in emotional intelligence, what's great about emotional intelligence is something that you can actually practice and get better at. Whereas your IQ, you may not be able to improve it or increase it in a significant way. For example, if you're have an average IQ, there are no ways that I could make you have an IQ that is very superior, which in your everyday life you may not have used. But emotional intelligence is something that you use all the time. So the great news with emotional intelligence is that something that you can practice and you can get better at. For example, these questions here, these 5 questions here, they are questions that are coming from a test, and I have the citation, the reference right up here if somebody wanted to go and look at them later on. And there are questions that have some answers, and then the psychologist who's assessing them, okay, or the professional, they're going to be able to assess your emotional intelligence. For example, the first one says, you're on an aeroplane that suddenly hits extremely bad turbulence and begins rocking from side to side. What do you do? And some people, they may say, and there could be multiple choices there, but some people here, they may say, I don't do anything, I just continue reading my magazine. Or some other people may say, I look around and see what everybody else is doing, or I look at the flight attendants and see if they're actually panicking, and then I'll see what I do. So it depends a lot on how social you are. If you're a person who only looks into yourself, you're going to see what you're feeling. Yes, okay. But if you're a little bit more social, you may look around, you may seek to commiserate with everybody around you, so you won't be as anxious. Another question here is, you're in a meeting when a colleague takes credit for work that you have done. So let's say you did some things and some other person takes that credit from you. What do you do? Some people may say, I'm going to start shouting. Some other people may say, well, I'm going to get up and start telling everybody that it's my own work. Some other people may say, yes, I'm going to let that meeting finish, and then I'm going to go and talk to my boss and show them that, that was like on my computer before everybody else. So there are a lot of solutions for every problem in our everyday lives. And if you have high emotional intelligence, okay, that means that you take into consideration yourself and others at the same time before solving a problem. Okay, so you can read through them if you wanted. If you go later on our YouTube video and look at this, you can see these questions. And these questions are coming actually from a test for emotional intelligence. So let's go back now to what exactly emotional intelligence is. By the way, we're going to be saying what emotional intelligence is, but at the same time, you're going to be seeing what you need to be doing in order to improve these areas. Number one, like we said before, is self-awareness. Okay. Remember, we talked about self-assessment before when I told you that this is a component that we needed to add. Another component that sometimes is discussed, is not always there, is self-empowerment. We're going to see that as well. Being able to manage crisis, solve problems. It includes here positive thinking, but positive thinking comes with a caveat. We're not telling everybody, no matter what happens in your life, you need to think positive. No, if it's something negative happens in your life, you're going to think about the negative thing and come up with solutions. It's not possible for a person every single time, and no matter what happens in their life, to have a positive spin for everything. Communication is part of emotional intelligence, and of course, learning how to tolerate other people. Okay, so if this were in a circle, and let's say in an ideal school, in a grade school, Okay, in a grade school, you will learn some of those abilities, some of those skills, and practice them. Okay, so and all of them, they're in a circle. And why are they in the circle? Because each one of them helps the other one to be maintained or be high of high significance. For example, conflict resolution. If you can do that very well, that helps with your self-awareness, and your self-awareness works with your helps you self-empower, okay, and improve your communication skills and improve your group interactions. So emotional intelligence is a lot of skills put together, okay, that each skill helps the other one be maintained or improved. So moving on, let's talk. Let's take them one by one. I mean, we're not going to have a lot of time to discuss all of them in great detail, but I want you to see. And now with this slide, we're starting also, I'm going to start also to show you what you need to be doing. Okay. So what's self-awareness, first of all? You see self-awareness and self-assessment here in the same slide. Self-awareness is understanding your own emotions. For example, knowing that when you get angry, you start throwing things, you start kicking other people, you cannot think straight. Well, if you know that your anger is exhibited that way, what you need to be doing is that taking some time out. When you know that the anger is coming up, you stop, you do something else for 30 minutes, an hour, you come back, so you won't be reacting with the anger that you know that you're having. So being aware of your emotions, being aware of your reactions. We talked about the angry reaction before. Being aware of your own likes. Some of you may laugh with this or smile. Yes, some people, they don't know what they like and what they dislike. And not being afraid to express what you like and you dislike. Being aware of your own biases. When we train psychologists, we tell them that when you see clients for psychotherapy, you may have some prejudices or biases in your life. And yes, they may be at the very back of your brain, of your mind. And if you cannot get rid of them with a particular client, then you refer that client somewhere else. But of course, you have to know your own biases. If you don't like short people, or if you don't like tall people, or if you don't like people that are coming from a certain country, and that comes out in your psychotherapy, then you're not a good psychotherapist. Okay. Of course, I'm not asking somebody to suppress their biases, but you have to know them in order to be good to other people. Knowing your own motives. Yes, sometimes we act selfishly, and we don't even know our own motives. When we do our own self-assessment, we might realize what are our motives. It could be that I'm jealous and I want to get better than somebody else. Being aware of your own weaknesses, okay, and strengths. It's not bad to know that you're an emotional person and you react emotionally in some instances, but you have to be aware of that, so your communication can be more effective in emotional situations. Being aware of your own personality characteristics, knowing that you tend to get sad, you tend to get overly anxious, you tend to get overly I don't know, panicky, and sometimes. So these are things that we need to be self-assessing for. We need to be aware of. We need to know, for example, something that comes from the third wave of behaviorism, mindfulness, which is part of some psychotherapies. It's telling you, for example, when you're outside and you see nice colors out in the nature, take some time and be aware of those. So how it makes you feel, how it makes you feel elated. Well, that would be self-awareness, okay? So being self-aware and self-assessing what we're doing, what we're feeling, what are our motives, what are our strengths and weaknesses, that's actually a skill and ability that could help us in our life as a businessman, as a parent, as a partner, or as a teacher or a student. Okay, now we discussed a few minutes before self-empowerment. Well, it's great to be self-confident, but up to a point. Sometimes your own confidence, and if you're overly confident and you exude confidence, sometimes you tend to overlook other people. You don't want to be arrogant. So it's a different thing being arrogant and different thing being self-confident. So it's great to self-empower. It's great to actually see what's good for you and how you can use your own benefits and strengths in life. But you have to be aware of others. For example, you have a boss in a business, okay, and they have very high goals about profits, about what they're doing and not doing with their company. But at the same time, they have to be aware of their employees' feelings, of their employees' benefits, and of course, their clients. So again, confidence amazing, but then you have to be careful on where confidence takes you. Arrogance, for example, that will be something that doesn't gain respect from many people. You're not going to have high emotional intelligence unless you have good communication skills. And good communication skills you can practice every day in your life. Even if you're a person who is pretty shy, or if you're a person who doesn't like talking a lot, having great communication skills, it's going to help you. You can practice them. You can try, for example, tomorrow morning when you go and get a coffee, to say thank you to the person who's doing the coffee for you, or starting a chit chat with them and asking them how was their day. Okay, you can do the same thing with your employees, your kids, your parents. But you know, the really big key here is actually hearing what others have to say, understanding what others have to say. Okay, you can talk again, appear confident but not arrogant. Again, good communication skills, they don't exude negative feelings towards others. You don't stop others by saying their ideas. You let others finish their thoughts. And again, I'm going to repeat it, practice makes perfect. Okay, you can practice communication skills. You can get actually better with those. Of course, some of our friends, some of the people that we know, they may be socially anxious. That's a totally different area. That, you know, some of those people, they may actually need help from a psychologist or a professional, so they could overcome their social anxiety. But most people, they may actually be hesitant to be social, and being social actually helps you respect, showing to others that you care by talking to them. Let's say your employees, you ask them in the morning how they're doing, how was their weekend. That's something that actually can start a good relationship with other people. Group interactions. Okay, sometimes you will lead some groups, sometimes you're going to follow. The key here is knowing when. Some people, they say, I'm a natural leader and I always lead. Well, you know, that's up to the point where you have to follow. We all met a person who is trying to show you that they know your job better than you know it. Okay, people that know everything, or well, they think they know everything, and they try to lead every single conversation, even in areas where you are the specialist. And you know that you're going to develop some negative feelings for those people. Well, if you feel like that, don't do the same thing with other people as well. Sometimes you need to follow. Well, if let's say you are 5 or 6 people talking with each other, and you're talking about I don't know, accounting, let the accountant throw in their ideas first and discuss around them. I mean, you're allowed to disagree with people, but you don't know everything. Okay, so you assess yourself in group interactions, but at the same time you assess others. For example, how do you assess others, and why do you assess others? Well, let's say you're in a group. Let's say I'm teaching to a big classroom, or like I'm teaching to you. Well, I cannot see you, but in a big classroom, if they're in front of me, I could assess their reactions and see if the group right now is ready for a joke, or the group now is ready for something more serious. So this is what we do in our group interactions, and we need to be doing that, assessing the situation. A lot of people, they may not be really good with these situations, but again, you can practice. Or if you cannot understand others in a certain situations, try and bring back to your mind memories of how you were feeling in certain situations. For example, how you were feeling when somebody was humiliating you. Okay, well, you had negative feelings. Well, don't humiliate others. Don't humiliate, for example, your colleagues in front of other people. And again, practice makes perfect. And we're going to be repeating that. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves good conflict resolution as well. And there are some questions you need to be asking yourself. Why am I having a conflict with somebody? What is my role in this conflict? Sometimes we're in a conflict without us having any role. Okay? Is it worth the energy and time to be in that conflict? Am I going to gain something? Or is there somebody who's going to gain from this conflict? Sometimes we're having wars that don't need to be had. Okay? And again, yes, this is part of emotional intelligence, because that's going to save some of your relationships with friends, other groups, other colleagues, etc., etc. So in a conflict situation, can I manage my emotional outburst? If I have an emotional outburst, what would be the result of that? Okay, and most of the time in conflict resolutions, there could be a deal being made. I mean, if you are the person who is stubborn and then they never hear others, they don't like to communicate with others their ideas, well, you're not going to reach a deal. Well, sometimes you can reach a deal and stop the conflict resolution. And as you can see, even here, communication, understanding others and understanding yourself is the key. Now, some of you may think that there are only a couple of emotions. No, there are a lot of emotions. There are a lot of words that can actually describe the emotions that we are feeling in our everyday life. Okay? Of course, you know happiness. Of course, you know love. Of course, you know sadness and depression. But there are many other feelings out there that most of the times we haven't thought about them, and we don't connect them to what our body feels when we're having those emotions. For example, what does it feel to be content? Content with the situation. I'm feeling content. I'm fine. I'm feeling calm, relaxed, and okay with everything that's going around me. How do I feel when I'm cheerful or blissful, or when I'm in a melancholic mood, or if I'm apathetic, like I don't care about something? If you're going to understand others really, really well, okay, and how they're feeling or when they're feeling these emotions, you have to understand yourself first, okay? If you don't know what surprise means in yourself, how are you going to be able to identify it in other people? If you don't know what shock looks in you, or how it feels, how are you going to understand how it feels for somebody else when they're shocked with either good news or bad news? Okay, so these are some of the emotions out there, and you see there are like other, because there's so many other emotions that we can feel. Annoyed, for example. Okay, and we have to look through them. You don't have to take this list. It's just and you don't even have to name them. It's just what I'm asking you to do, like identify how they look and they feel inside you, so you can identify them in other people. Let's bring an example here. Let's say again, I like the examples with bosses because they're in a power position and they have to be extra careful. Okay, so let's say you have a boss and they don't know what it means being shocked, or they don't connect with themselves to understand, when I'm feeling shocked, I feel this way, I react this way. So probably my employees feel the same way when I shock them with this news. If you don't show that you're understanding your employees, if you don't show that you're there with them when they are shocked, for example, when you give them bad news, then you're not going to have their respect. You're not going to have. They're not going. they're not going to have your back when you need them. Okay, so it's a big circle here. It's a big circle where your emotional intelligence helps you understand others, understand yourself, but at the same time, you're giving the others the chance to understand you, okay, and be there for you when, of course, you gain their respect through your emotional intelligence. In another aspect of emotional intelligence, it's knowing when it's fine to express my emotions in the intensity that I should, in the place that I should. For example, Aristotle, he said that it's really, really easy to be angry. And by the way, I should have told you that from the beginning, all emotions are fine. It's okay to feel all of our emotions. It's okay to have our emotions. Evolutionarily, we need all of our emotions. Without our emotions, we wouldn't have survived. Without fear, we would have been left out in the wild, be eaten by animals. Without jealousy, we would have been somewhere again out in there in the jungle. Somebody will be taking our partner and us not reacting. Without anxiety, we wouldn't be able to get up in the morning and do what we need to do so we can have food and shelter and everything else. So all of emotions are there, and they were developed evolutionarily in our bodies and brain because we need them. So anger, okay, Aristotle said it's fine to be angry, okay, but it's so easy to be really angry. You know what's the secret here? What Aristotle said, the hard part is that you have to be angry with the right person. So it's not okay if, let's say, you are the boss, you get angry with another businessman, and then you go, and because your employees are the easy target, you throw all of your anger to them. Okay, it's not okay if you're a parent and you get really, really angry at work, and then you go 7 hours later at home and you are angry with your family. And you have to be angry, and it's really hard, with the right intensity. Sometimes with little things we overreact, okay, and we have to be angry at the right place, and in places where anger is going to help us, and our reaction is going to help us. So again, it all has to do with knowing yourself. If you know, I'm going to use the previous example that I told you before, if you know that when you get angry, you lose it, as we say, you start throwing things and beating up people and slapping things and breaking things. Well, you know, if you're 30 something years old and you know that you do that, well, it's time that you realize that when you're feeling the anger coming onto you, you take time out. You walk and go somewhere else for an hour or a day, you calm down, and then you deal with the thing that made you angry. Okay? So it all culminates into this. If you have high emotional intelligence, if you understand others, if you self-assess, and again, I'm going to talk with an example. You see that a lot of people, they are reacting negatively to you, and you tend to say that no, it's the other fault, it's never my fault. And a lot of people are doing that, and a lot of professors like me, they're doing that. Well, no, if you self-assess and you sit down and say, well, you know, there are 20 people that are turning against me, but at work, could it be me? It could be, of course. There is a chance that it could be the others. There's some misinformation out there or something, but it doesn't hurt if you do a self-assessment and see that it could be me. Yes. Okay. So by doing that, by having open door policies, and you allow people to communicate with you, by understanding and trying to understand others, by communicating with others and sharing ideas and letting them share their idea, you're gaining their respect. As parents sometimes, as bosses sometimes, as partners sometimes, as friends, we think that when you scare others, that's respect. No, that's not respect. And for you to understand what I'm talking about, think about professions like being a soldier in the army, like a professional soldier in the army, or being a policeman, or working in a situation where there should be high discipline, or being a student somewhere, okay, or a professor somewhere. Well, by scaring others, that's what you gain, fear, nothing else. And when the time comes, these people are not going to have your back. These people are not going to produce a lot for you. You're a boss and you're waiting for people to produce for you. The partnership you have with your partner at home is not going to bring a lot of things if what you're doing is trying to scare other people. you have to gain their respect, not their fear. And I know you already knew this, but these are some things that we don't self-assess all the time, and we don't discuss them with ourselves. This is the first person you should be discussing with, yourself. Okay? For example, try inspiring others instead of scaring them. If somebody in your home, let's say your child did something bad, instead of like throwing left and right hard punishments, try and inspire them by showing them the right way. Not that sometimes we shouldn't have consequences for our actions as children, okay? But inspiring and gaining respect is always preferable by bringing fear. And a lot of people, that's where they misunderstand life. They believe that because they're scared of me, they're respecting me. No, they're not respecting you, and they're not going to have your back when you need them. Okay? So this time, again, from last week, I wanted to have a much shorter discussion so we can have time to answer some questions. But let me recap a little bit, okay? And I'm going to go here so I can recap. So I'll show you what's the most important part of this presentation: emotional intelligence. We saw the video and we talked about empathy. Empathy, yes, is the root of emotional intelligence, because empathy means that, you know, I'm getting in somebody else's shoes. I'm trying to understand, comprehend how they're feeling. Okay, it's very different than sympathy. Sympathy is just, you know, showing that you care, but you know, you just more, just like in the video. Okay, so empathy is understanding others, but at the same time, you have to have self-awareness. You have to self-assess all the time. Yes, you have to be confident, but not arrogant. Okay, you have to be able to deal with most crises that come your way and problem solve, and keep positive thinking when you can, and when you cannot, because as I said before, negative thinking is part of our lives, try and find solutions, communicating with others, opening all channels of communications, and tolerating others even when they're doing things that you don't like, even when they're speaking a lot, listen to them. Okay, gain the respect of others, not the fear of other people. If you follow these 3 or 4 basic things that we said today, and if you practice them, okay, your emotional intelligence is going to be higher. And if your emotional intelligence is going to be higher, that means you're going to be more successful with your everyday relationships with other people. And that could be relationship with your partner, your children, your parents, with your colleagues, no matter what your position is in business or organization. So that was my own presentation. Now I'm going to close my presentation, guys, and I'm going to go and just a second. Let me see if we had any live comments here. Somebody's asking me, very interesting question. Has food and overeating has to do with emotional intelligence? Well, depends. I mean, as a psychologist, I'm going to have to assess that more. Sometimes overeating could be part of anxiety. Sometimes overeating could be part of us. You know, I'm sad, so I'm eating, or I don't know what to do and I'm eating. Emotional intelligence now. Oh, well, you know how I can make that connection with emotional intelligence? Yes, I mean, if you actually use your social skills and talk about what's going on with you and the reasons why they're making you overeat with other people that are maybe having the same problem, or even other people that don't have the same problem, that could actually help you with overeating. So yes, it could be related. I'm not going to say that emotional intelligence is the direct reason behind overeating, but that could be related. So emotional intelligence, in other words, what I'm trying to say, it's in our everyday life. Even me sitting here in front of you right now and talking to my computer, basically, okay, I do need emotional intelligence. I have to show you, and you can see me, that, you know, I have some feelings what I'm talking to you. I have to show you that when I'm talking about something sad, I'm going to be sad. If I'm talking about something happy, I'm going to be happy. So I can convey my messages much better to you. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Any questions about our presentation? By the way, our presentation is going to be on YouTube pretty soon. I think today is going to be uploaded there, and you can watch it or rewatch it or discuss it more. You can find my email if you search it at the University of Nicosia website, and you can ask me any questions that you want, even in the future, about emotional intelligence. So if we don't have any more comments or any other questions, we can actually stop here. I don't want to make it tiring. I've been talking already for 40 minutes. Any other questions, guys? No? Well, if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to say good afternoon. Okay. I'm going to say enjoy your time, stay healthy. And again, look me up. You can find my email on our website at the University of Nicosia, and you can email me any questions that you might have. Thank you so much for watching this either now, live, or later on. And again, stay healthy. Oh, even though I said goodbye, there's a question here. Does emotional intelligence has to do with genes in some part, with genetics? Well, it does. Some people, they unfortunately, they're born naturally very social. Okay, they are born with that great ability to be very social and sociable and understand others. But the great news, as I told you in the past, is that emotional intelligence, it's something actually that we can cultivate, that we can make it grow, okay, by practicing with our families. Start with your family, start with your parents, start with your kids, start with your friends, and then move out with people at your work, and then with people that you meet at a restaurant, or when you go out, when we're allowed to go out again. So yes, the genetic part has a lot to do with if we're born very social. But the great news is that we can cultivate it, even if we're not great at it from birth. Okay, guys. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything else. So I'm right now. So I'm gonna stop it here, and again say have a great afternoon, and thank you for watching. Thank you.